Welcome to episode 93 of the Hard Truth About B2B e-commerce. I'm your co-host, Isaiah Bollinger. Unfortunately, Tim's not able to make it, but he'll certainly be back for the next episode. In the meantime, let's take a quick pause for the sponsors. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to give you a word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Balance. Balance is a B2B e-commerce payment solution that works well for you and for your buyers. It offers a seamless one-click checkout for almost any payment method, including ACH, wire, checks, cards, even terms. It's used by leaders in B2B e-commerce, and it's as easy as buying a shirt from Amazon. Check them out at getbalance.com. Book a session and tell them what your needs are. They are the first dedicated payment platform for B2B e-commerce, 100% tailored to your needs. Thanks again to our sponsor, Balance. Our next sponsor is TradeCentric. TradeCentric transforms the way businesses transact by enabling punch-out, purchase order, and invoice automation solutions for over 3,000 companies around the world. Uniquely positioned at the intersection of e-commerce and e-procurement, TradeCentric helps B2B buyers connect with suppliers and automate payment, procurement processes to drive greater efficiency and user adoption of streamlined systems. Learn more at tradecentric.com. Thank you to our sponsors.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to get our guest who there's about 2 or 3 of you guys that I would say are up there for like the top B2B kind of like evangelist, in the industry. So I'm very excited to bring you back, Ryan Beck, from Insiba. You can consider yourself CEO and founder of Insiba, or how do you?
Oh, I'm managing partner.
What is your title? Or like, I don't
So I'm a managing partner and co-founder, right? So I have some partners in the business, but yeah, one of the founders of the business. So thanks for having me, Isaiah. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, I know we're a little bit more limited on time, and I apologize. There's my technical difficulties, which is usually not the case on my end. Kind of delayed us a little bit. But for people that don't know you, obviously people that are deep into B2B, I think they kind of know your background. But for people that don't know you, can you give like a quick 1 minute, like how you got into it? I know you worked at an agency and you worked on the client side, and then
Yeah, sure, Isaiah, happy to. So 23 years in e-commerce, since the late 1990s. I've been in this field for a long time. I started my career on the B2C side. So I ran e-commerce for a number of B2C retail brands, Harbor Freight Tools, PacSun, and a few others. And so really came up, 17 years on that side of the business, selling products, building teams. I was a CEO, COO, VP of e-commerce at different companies through my career there. And about 7 years ago, Isaiah, I got into the B2B side. I saw the opportunity to help companies that have traditionally sold to businesses, manufacturers and distributors, to enable them with the same kinds of tools we had developed for years in B2C. Yeah. So there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of commonality too. I wrote a book, this thing right here, called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce, which is 400 pages.
I finally read it. I think I'll be honest. I think I might have skipped a couple chapters because it was like stuff on like technical stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I know this part. Like this is that's the
well, a lot of it.
For time, and I talk to a lot of CTOs, and I'm like, I'm not like a developer anymore, but I start to realize that like I still know more than some of these CTOs.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, if you had your hands
because they don't code anymore either, and some of them have been coding in like 10 years, I'm still pretty deep in the weeds on our website just launched, so I've just got to plug that. Like I'm in there. I'm troubleshooting with our developers on Zoom, cool. Like, hey, like what's going on here, like helping them figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it's no, for sure. And yeah, I mean, the book is designed for folks who are just getting into really e-commerce, and it's designed for companies that have sold traditionally through other channels like sales teams or sold to distribution, or have sold through call centers and things like that, and e-commerce is newer for them. And so yeah, for you, Isaiah, I'd imagine it's a lot of things.
I actually found a lot of value in it. I do. I know you're updating it, right? Are you
Yeah,
going to come up with a new version? I'm very excited to see that, because I'm the kind of guy who's like, oh man, 3 years ago, it's like, oh,
I know.
so old, and you know what I mean? Because so much changes so fast. Like, I want to see like the new data,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about our industry, is that it changes so much. I mean, e-commerce evolves so quickly, and I published it right before the pandemic. It published in early 2020, and gosh, I mean, so much has changed. But what's interesting, Isaiah, is it's really been an acceleration of everything that's in the book, rather than, it's not that the world changed in terms of what works, or the fundamentals of, the necessity to have e-commerce for these B2B companies. It's just that it accelerated everything by, 10 years, right? It made the urgency much higher among B2B companies. And so,
I mean, honestly, one of the reasons we relaunched our website was more around the full service concept, and we call it like the digital customer lifecycle, or e-commerce lifecycle, which is, it's actually a fairly simple concept when you break it down. And a lot of the basics haven't changed, but if you dig in, and we've been digging in more and more in audits and more full service kind of view on things, less development focused recently. And it's like, just most companies just don't do the basics. Their email programs suck. Yep. They have very little email automation for abandoned cart, or like segmentation, just basic stuff across the board, are just not being, it's accelerating the need to do the basics, I would say. But I would still say most companies haven't even got there.
Well, I would say that in the B2B sector, where I focus these days, that's particularly true of manufacturers, that they are still so terrified of channel conflict that a lot of them haven't launched any e-commerce directly selling either the business buyer, or even enabling the distributor or dealer who's buying from them, with digital tools to buy. So there's just a reticence that remains even through after COVID.
And I talked to a fairly large manufacturer distributor. I think that mostly, actually, I think it's a mix, right? Half distributor manufacturer and building materials, which is especially outdated industry. And they're like so scared to put anything out there, that to get access to their site, they literally require like VPN like access. Like they want to like go to your office to make sure that like you only have access on like a designated computer to their B2B store.
Wow.
They're just so scared to and I don't know why the fear is so big in some of these industries, but let's because I know we're limited on time. I think a lot of this ties back to Amazon, to be honest, right? So Amazon paved the way. I think Amazon kind of like forced a lot of people to rethink their business models, right? Because all of a sudden it's like 2-day shipping, especially if you're a commodity and you can't do that. Like, now you either got to sell on Amazon or come up with something similar, because what makes you unique. So you transitioned over to helping businesses sell on Amazon, correct, at a certain point,
right? So I'm the co-founder, as you mentioned, and managing partner of a company called Enceba. Enceba is we focus on helping B2B manufacturers with their Amazon strategy, and then bringing product to market on Amazon, and helping them think through exactly what we're just talking about, Isaiah. Channel conflict, right? So Amazon, just, in consumer and B2B, it doesn't live on an island, right? Amazon is a part of, a go-to-market strategy, and it can be the number one source of channel conflict for a lot of companies, particularly manufacturers. And so helping companies with the right strategy to manage and control the channel from a pricing and reseller perspective. And it can, I like to joke that if you don't have a proactive Amazon program, Amazon and the sort of marketplace there will control you if you don't gain control of it.
I would assume if you're a manufacturer, it's going to find its way there.
It will,
especially if you don't do a good job of controlling it, and someone gets enough product at a good enough margin where they can just I mean, the margin has to be there, right? Because if they're getting it too expensive, then they can't really, there's not enough margin on Amazon, because they take 15% plus everything else. But
Yes, it depends on how you're selling, but yes, you know, it's interesting. We did a study a couple of years ago where we surveyed manufacturers, and we had several hundred respond, and they said, you know, we asked the question, is your product on Amazon in some form? And over 70% said yes. And then we asked the question, do you know the people that are selling your product on Amazon? You know, those sellers, and over 70% said no. So,
oh my God. And that's probably like an understatement. You know how these surveys are like, probably some people that of that 30% haven't even checked, and it might even be on Amazon, right? Like, and they don't even know, you know, or some knockoff product that's even worse because it's you know, ripping off their brand, which I mean, especially if you're like somewhat of a commodity, right? Like, you know, if you're selling something relatively simple nowadays, it's probably pretty easy to knock off a brand, you know, right? You know, so
sure.
you know, obviously it's hard to knock off an iPhone, right? Like,
Right.
so complicated, right? But you know,
yeah, but
you know.
what's fascinating though, Isaiah, is that a lot of brands and manufacturers don't they either try to ignore the issue, or they don't realize that it doesn't have to be that way. In other words, they don't have to surrender control, and it's sort of counterintuitive, right? You have to have a proactive Amazon program in order to manage the channel, and it actually, when you have a proactive Amazon program, it actually reduces channel conflict. You have less conflict at the end of the day because, you know, you're able then to manage your presence, what's sold there, your pricing, who is selling product there, present. You know, let's be honest, Amazon is a search engine, right? 70% of product search is starting on Amazon, not on Google.
So you need to kind of almost be there from like a brand presence perspective.
You have to be. Yeah. You have to be. It's and B2B companies don't realize this, that you know, Amazon business is huge. It's going to do over $40 billion in revenue this year. It is a distributor. It's three times the size, 4 times the size of Grainger.
Yeah.
You know,
it'll be 100 billion soon. It'll be 100 billion.
It will be.
My wife, you know, I always use this story because we own a little baby, you know, Airbnb business, but you know, we don't have time to call people, right? Like, so she got an Amazon business account, that kind of stuff. She has like the little the business accounts for the things that she can find, Home Depot and whatnot. And most of it's just order, either buy online and pick up in store, or just direct drop ship to each individual Airbnb. You know,
yeah, exactly, and that's exactly right. And, you know, we're doing speaking at the B2B online conference in May. We're doing a debate, and we're actually talking about Amazon and distribution. So B2B online is a conference that gets, you know, 700, 800, 900 people who are all in B2B, you know, big manufacturers, distributors, the Graingers and MSCs of the world will be there, and 3M and all. So, but we're going to debate Amazon's effect on distribution. And the question we're going to debate is Amazon the end of all distribution? Does it mean that it's the death of distribution? Traditional, you know, just like, you know, it's impacted some retailers, right? You talk to Sears or JCPenney. Yeah, and I have this in the book, right? Chapter 1, I talk about Sears and how they didn't approach e-commerce, you know, correctly.
Best Buy, or not Best Buy, Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bed Bath and Beyond,
oh
Circuit City.
I had a friend that worked there. He said it was the worst company he's ever worked for.
Really? I don't know the company that well, but I do know they're having trouble.
He worked for some good companies. I don't know why he took the job.
Right. Wow. Well, I can tell you that you know, Isaiah, that dynamic is happening in B2B. I personally don't think it's the death of distribution. I think Amazon is helping the distribution industry and B2B channels to elevate their game. They have to. And does it mean that some mid-market distributors who don't invest in e-commerce, who haven't taken the steps necessary, will go out of business? Yes. I think that we'll continue to see a drop in the number of distributors in the United States and globally. And Amazon being one,
especially if they don't innovate, right? I mean, if your value is, oh, you got to call me on the phone, like that's not enough of a value prop, right? Like you need more of a value prop than calling me on the phone and maybe I'll get you what you want, and you have no idea when it's coming.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. And
it's
I
just
think,
like, how is that a value prop? You know, like.
Well, that's exactly right.
Trucks, right? It's like, okay, great, cool. Like, is that enough? Is that, you know, you need a more, I think the strategy is just missing. there's just a lack of like, I talked to some of these B2B companies and I'm like, what's your brand strategy? It's just like crickets. It's just like, oh, we know a lot about this industry. It's like, okay, but like, how do you represent that online and get that out to the customer? Like, they're just, it's almost like they just haven't rethought their strategy since like 2005.
Oh, or earlier, or earlier, right? Because I say this in the book, right? Business and for many of these companies has been just good enough, right? It's been good enough so that the ownership, particularly, privately held small I'll call them mid-market.
I know this very well because my best friends' families and the sons are part, like, from my high school. These are kids that they're now part owners in their family companies.
Yeah,
and you can never get their dad to do anything.
Right. Exactly. You just described. But what's interesting is
they give up. Sometimes they give up, or the good ones they take over. And
that's a great point, because what I see happening in some cases is that second, third, fourth generation, and we work with a bunch of companies like this, family-owned mid-market manufacturers in this case, but they're when they take over, that third generation or whatever, they're actually investing. They're actually making the investments in e-commerce, in Amazon, in modernizing the business from a digital perspective. And guess what? They're winning, right? They're winning share. They're creating differentiation in the market because they're responding to what the customer wants. Whereas there's still this whole swath of businesses that haven't gone there, and they're falling behind. And Amazon is both an opportunity for companies like this, meaning that because people will buy through Amazon from brands they don't know, 65% in fact will buy products, right? It's an opportunity, but it's also a threat, right? Because you've got all these made for Amazon businesses that are coming in, a lot of them coming out of Asia, that are making product that is competing with the traditional manufacturers in B2B and B2C channels. But they're really good at Amazon. They're really good at e-commerce. They know how to put the product up. They know how to get search optimized on Amazon. And they're actually taking share from traditional manufacturers, companies like 3M and Kimberly-Clark and tool manufacturers like Stanley Black & Decker and all these.
Well, you have an opportunity to move much faster, right? You don't have the political,
right.
Like the challenge with big companies is they're so hard to maneuver anything, right? Most big companies, some are more nimble than others. So you do, if you can act quickly, you could get a lot done, right? You could, but if you need someone running the ship like you kind of, right, or me, that has enough knowledge, realistically, let's be honest, they're not going to get me or you probably, but they can get something close and hire us, right? And so
what I'm seeing is there's an awareness though, right? So there's an awareness amongst these companies that they need to do something. And you're right. It takes B2B companies are very versus retail, as I lived in both sides. B2B companies are very, very conservative in how they take action. They want a business case, everything to death, meaning, give me the exact business case.
By the time they figured out the project, it's already obsolete because the technology changed so much. You're like, the idea of agile, like trying to, I still can't launch their site. They don't get many orders online, right? It's like a legacy distributor and they don't get many orders. And so there's like one thing that's a real blocker, but I'm like, look, there's an obvious way to do like a phase 1 with that feature and then make the better versions phase 2.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do in there. I'm like, guys, I've launched literally 500 websites. Like, just launch this thing, choose, they want like a better multi-warehouse shipping, right? And it's like, just pick a central warehouse. And this is only for freight. And no one orders freight on their website. Like, this is the public website. Like they get like barely any orders. I'm like, just launch the thing and we can iterate. And they just like can't, they're like trying to perfect it, and it's just gonna drag out and it's going to drag out. And it's like, but they're wasting all the value of everything else that's been done that's much better than what they have. You know what I mean? The concept of like agile is just like really hard to.
Well, Isaiah, what I see also, the other dynamic is that I'm seeing happen when they start either with, it's crawl, walk, run. When a B2B company starts with either what you've described or
trying to get to walk to run when they should be crawling, it's just like a disaster, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we have examples where companies will start with Amazon, right? And so I have a great example of this. company called Grasshopper Lawnmower. I don't know if you've ever seen these lawnmowers. Or these ride-on lawnmowers. And
would you consider Amazon almost a better crawl stage? Because if you think about it, it's almost like, hey, if you can't sell on Amazon, how are you going to sell on your website? You know, like.
Well, I do actually, and I believe that, and Grasshopper being a great example of this, because what they started with was Amazon. They started parts and accessories on Amazon.
Yeah,
we launched them 3 years ago on Amazon. It's the third generation, that's coming in and says we got to do something digitally. They proved the case to the rest of the business, the family, essentially. It's a family-owned business. He said, look at what we're doing on Amazon. They built a meaningful business there. They're reaching into their customer base. They're servicing the customers that the dealers weren't reaching very effectively. They're taking market share back from aftermarket non-OEM parts and accessories for their ride-on lawnmowers. And then what happened next? The fellow who's doing this, the third generation, said, okay, look, we've shown that we can do this. People want e-commerce is viable in our business, and it doesn't destroy our dealer base. Let's look at ways to continue to grow this. So now they're about to roll out their own e-commerce. So there's, to their dealer base and to end users. So so crawl, to your point, Isaiah. Yes, Amazon as a stage for crawling is great because it gets your product data ready. The traffic's already there. You learn how to market and merchandise in an e-commerce environment. And most importantly, it helps people.
And then you can export that data to your own website and have like phase one kind of done.
Exactly.
Yeah, without the huge risk of a big infrastructure project. Because, we focus more on the own channels, right? Their own website. But it is tough, right? Because now you got ERP integration, product, you're trying to do 10 times more complicated stuff than just selling on Amazon, right? So, plus drive traffic, which most of that they're trying to convert their own existing customers to use it. But that's a whole nother, we could probably spend a whole episode on that.
Well, you got it on your sales team and all the other things. So yes, it's a bigger effort for sure.
How, I know this is like a very general question. It depends on the company, whether distributor, manufacturer, but like, how would you view the landscape of how they should look at like Amazon, their own website, some through EDI? Look, I'm not saying don't do phone sales in some, like, you're probably not going to have 100% online, but like,
right.
Where do you see like what the mix should be on generally? I know it's like or you can maybe even try to use an example, just so people have a perspective of how they should be thinking about this channel conflict.
No, great question. And channel conflict, right? Huge subject. And what you're thinking about it and what you're alluding to there is internal channel conflict. In other words, is for example, e-commerce and Amazon, is that going to take all the sales away from
I assume you don't want to have 100% sales on Amazon, right? Like that's probably not the best direction, right? Realistically, that's a little overkill, right?
Yeah, I mean, look. So to your point, Amazon is one leg of the stool, and if you're a branded manufacturer, you need to be there in some form, whether that's selling directly or partnering with a distributor or dealer to sell there. But so Amazon. So you asked a question about mix. A healthy mix kind of depends on the industry. I don't think this is the death of an industry.
Let's use an industry example. Let's pick it.
Sure. So let's think about, a manufacturer. Use one of our clients. Use like I don't know. Let's use Big Ass Fans because it's a fun one, right? Big Ass Fans. Ever hear this company?
I don't know them.
Okay. So if you're in an airport, Isaiah, or in an arena, or if you go into a warehouse and you look at
like the big industrial fans,
if you see a big ass fan, and funny story, these guys started their business. It was originally called HVLS Fans, high velocity, low speed fans. And the guy
that's a good job with marketing, right, and branding for B2B, right?
Exactly, right. So when he originally called that, right, the founder would go into these places, and his customers would say, people would say, that's a big ass fan. And so people said that to him enough. He's like,
I want to get sucked into that thing. It's like in the movies, or they like the guy like dies, the guy getting sucked into the,
Exactly. Right. So he renamed the whole company Big Ass Fans because people kept saying that.
It sounds like it works kind of, right?
So look, this is a $3 $400 million company now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean,
It's a huge company.
That's pretty successful.
Yeah, they're very well known in their business. Now, you're asked about mix, right? So they have multiple channels. They sell to the Grangers, they sell to the big distributors, industrial distributors. They sell to, like, the Home Depots and Lowe's.
That makes sense, right? Because they're getting certain market segments that they're gonna not probably get on their own, right? And so, yeah,
they've got their own e-commerce. They sell direct to consumers and to business buyers. They sell to contractors and architects who build spec their products into buildings, and they have a healthy Amazon program. So when you look at all those things, I mean, they're doing millions of dollars on Amazon. They're doing millions of dollars in their own e-commerce. Those two together, though, the two together are 10%, 15% of their total sales. A lot of their sales come through a direct sales force and through distribution and retail. So they have a very healthy mix, and they have a really interesting philosophy on this. What they say when you ask them the question, what is your channel strategy? We want to be wherever the customer wants to buy. In other words, we want to eliminate all the friction in our channels. So do they manage their channel conflict? Do they have policies and distribution agreements and internet selling policies and MAP and minimum advertised price? Yes, they have all those things, and they manage them well. But they also they've made a decision, and I think it's the right decision for all manufacturers. Get the channel. You just need the channel as a path to the customer. You need to represent yourself well in those channels. Eliminate friction in your own e-commerce. Let your e-commerce reinforce your sales team's efforts, because that's what it does. And if your sales team is actually offering real value to the end buyer, guess what? They're going to embrace e-commerce eventually, because it helps them in their job.
Yeah, they don't need to process every little baby order.
Exactly.
And they can go and get big customers. And that's the big thing too. Like, if your sales reps are so scared of the website, it's like, what value are they providing to the business? It just means they're order takers. You're paying them way too much for that. You can get an assistant to do that. I'm curious what you think about do you know anything about their B2B site, or what, if it's like on Magento or what
their site has been on? So we don't run their site, but I know they historically have been on Magento. I think they may still be.
Okay.
So they
do
do
like a B2B, B2C site online on their own, then they have Amazon, maybe a few marketplaces, and then
you got it.
They probably have like EDI or kind of direct connections to their big.
Well, that's the other thing too. Yeah, you've got this in their case. Yes, EDI with some of their big customers. E-procurement is another path with some customers. So they're using all of it. And in their case, again, it's about eliminating friction, being where the buyer wants to buy. Making it easy, because ultimately companies like them, they differentiate on product. And if you differentiate on your product in the market, this is just an evolution of selling channels. Amazon is a path to market for certain use cases.
It's basically the new Walmart, right? I mean, it's Walmart was that for a long time, right? You had to be at Walmart and Target, and now it's like, well, now you just also have to be on Amazon, So
I believe so. And it's important for companies to know that Amazon plays a specific use case for most products or most transactions. It's about small quantity and need it fast. And when that's a place that Amazon plays. Ironically, companies like Granger is a great example. As a distributor, would view Amazon as being a competitive threat, but Granger is one of Amazon's biggest customers. Granger's people buy from Amazon for the business. So, you've got this interesting role that Amazon plays, which isn't the same as a traditional distributor or dealer or even a salesperson plays in the buying process. When you need a lot of expertise on the product or consultation in buying it before you buy it, Amazon doesn't do that very well. So
I would never call them to be like, hey, which product should I buy?
Right.
The data in their platform, right? Like they don't want to be doing that. That's not really what they're built for.
Although, as in, if you want to, we can talk a little bit about.
We want to quickly run through the predictions. I know.
Yeah, sure. I know. So I absolutely love to, because one of the things they've got going on is pursuing that planned spend, right? Which is kind of what we're talking about here. The more the pre-planned capital investments that companies make every year, big companies, organizations, governments.
Yeah, like I don't want to spend $200,000 on this. Help me.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So we have these predictions here. I'll if you want, I can share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we do throw this up on YouTube. One day we'll have a bigger YouTube channel.
But no worries, man.
Gone up. I think it's got up. It was like almost zero at one point. It's up to like a few hundred subscribers. Like
that's awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So we have this. We did these predictions for 2023, and this is kind of fun. I'll
zoom in because it's
zoom in. Yeah, it's a little small. There we go.
Yeah.
How's that? That look good? So we have these predictions we did, Isaiah, where we talk about what we think is coming this year and into, really to the next 18 to 24 months with Amazon. And by the way, we'll hold ourselves accountable to these. So you see,
hard to be really spot on every prediction, but yeah,
I know. And so this is what we think is going to happen. There's no guarantees. Don't take this to the bank and try to get a loan. So, look, at the end of the day, the first prediction we have here, is that Amazon will continue to right size, right? So, and we've already seen this when we wrote these predictions back in January. They were announcing their first round of layoffs, 18,000 people.
Can you go down a little bit? I'm curious what the.
Yeah, sure. I'll show this. Yeah. So this is
their first reduction in staff ever, right?
Yeah. Yes. I believe so. There may have been
maybe like 2000 during like a .com boom or something like that, but
yeah,
that might have been.
What's fascinating? Exactly. No, but what's fascinating, Isaiah, is look at the number of employees they have. Almost 6 million employees, right? This is through the end of the last year.
Close to probably Walmart is probably a little ahead, right? But yeah, it's probably pretty close to that.
It's ridiculous. It's so many employees. So they grew in response to the pandemic. What folks don't realize is, the press loves this stuff. Oh, Amazon's shrinking. They're laying everybody off. The business is in flames. No, they're right sizing. They hired a lot of people. They're being more.
Pretty much every tech company is doing that, though, right? Facebook just did a bunch of them. Apple might be like the only one that hasn't, but I feel like Apple's just got like such a good product that
Yeah. And I think what's fascinating is this kind of trend might B2B companies being as conservative as they are, they might say, oh, well, okay, maybe Amazon's not the right path for us. Maybe that's really not a viable business model or something. No, wrong. Don't read into it that way. Our opinion is Amazon's going to continue doing this for the next couple of years.
Well, do you think that they're going to grow their revenue? Because with that many people, my guess is they're probably moving towards a lot of automation, right? Automating their warehouses, just automating more and more. So the revenue might actually grow with less people,
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I think we will see growth in the revenue. It's going to come less from the traditional retail business. That'll still grow a bit, but it has really plateaued. They're at such a scale. But what's interesting is, and it's actually ties into our next prediction here. Yeah, we're going to continue to see B2B demand shift towards Amazon. Amazon Business has become the fastest growing part of Amazon. And it's growing at significant double digits. In fact, here's some data. This is eMarketer that shows where they're going to be. So we're going to continue to see significant growth in Amazon Business.
I wouldn't be surprised if they beat some of those numbers. It's an area, one area where I think they could beat the numbers. I think it's gonna be tough to beat retail numbers, right, these days.
Sure.
But this is an area I think they could beat these numbers.
What's fat? Yeah, they could. I believe that because they're investing in this and they're doing things that a lot of traditional.
Well, if you look at their projection, they're projecting a pretty big decline in percentage growth, and I think that might not be as big of a decline as they're projecting. You know what I mean? In terms of,
you could be right. Yeah, you could be right. But I think that's a couple years out too. The fact of the matter is B2B is huge. The industry is enormous, and they're doing, and it's not just one industry either. It's all you got everything from automotive to aerospace to.
I mean, they're barely tapping into it, really. Like they're even the 66 billion for them is still like. They probably see that as tiny market share, Well,
it's right here on this chart. Look at the blue line, 2.1% of total B2B e-commerce sales.
Exactly. They're like, how do we get that to 10%,
Exactly. So that's our second prediction. The third one is that Amazon will begin to win a portion of what's called planned spend. So what is planned spend? it's what we talked about. It's the big companies, it's the institutions, it's Stanford University saying, I'm going to spend, $4 million next year in these categories. And actually a lot of B2B spending is what's called planned spend. It's not what traditionally has been termed tail spend, which is where Amazon has played, right? It's that, the 20 to 30% of spend that happens sort of because they need it right away and quickly.
No, I mean, even our tiny little Airbnb business is maturing, and we're like, we need salt for the winter. We don't want to keep buying it ad hoc or like run out. It's like, let's just buy a huge shipment.
Yep.
And that's literally, it's becoming planned spend for us.
That's right. No, that's planned spend. You're going to spend it.
I think we actually looked around and we ended up going with Home Depot, but I wouldn't be surprised if one day we look at Amazon Business and get a better deal,
Right. So they have teams that they've hired and put in place to focus on planned spend, develop features and functionalities for your business, Isaiah, that, for example, that, allow you to buy in advance, put it on a schedule, at negotiated pricing, things like that. So they're after that. And we believe they'll start to make a dent in it this year. We'll see. They're even having conferences about it, like this Reshape thing that happened last year, where they're bringing procurement professionals together and talking about, how Amazon can be used as a tool here and what they need to be effective. So our next prediction was that Amazon will continue to rationalize their assortment, particularly private label. I don't know if you heard the announcements last year, but they've started to reduce the count of private label product. All manufacturers are terrified of this. Amazon's going to come in, learn on my behalf. If I sell on Amazon, and they're going to steal all my product.
My guess is they're probably realizing it's better to have less good private label products and not this like huge assortment that, right?
Yeah. Well, the dirty secret too is, and if we look down here at this is the product count on Amazon from it's a couple years old now. I'm waiting for Applico to do a new study on this, but it's enormous, right? They have a huge product. I mean, the Everything Store, Bezos's original mission in consumer, they've done that. There's 3 billion products on Amazon. But in B2B, they've got millions of products in these categories, but we believe they're going to continue to reduce these. To your point, the point is, in terms of their private label offerings, the point is where they've offered these products, the whole mantra has been, hey, we're going to bring better value to the customer. What does that mean? That means lower prices. Well, they're doing it in high volume commodity products. Guess what? They're low margin. So Amazon, at the end of the day, particularly now, Amazon's under pressure to become profitable, to be profitable.
Yeah, and they can't rely purely. It's AWS that's powered the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah. You got it. So that's our prediction is that we're going to continue to see decline in private label offering on Amazon. And then the final prediction we have here, Isaiah, is that we're going to see a shift or continue to see a shift from what's called 1P selling, which is wholesale selling to Amazon. It's also called vendor central, to 3P or seller central selling, because brands are looking to take control of the channel, and the way to do it is through 3P selling, not 1P. So if you look at, and even Amazon itself is moving away from this vendor central model in a lot of ways. If you look at a lot of the layoffs that occurred early in the year happened in those vendor central ranks, from what we understand. And so it's just
can you explain that a little bit? Like, what does that mean for what is that? 3P means the brands will own the.
Yeah, let me explain it. So on Amazon, there's 2 ways to sell product. If you're a brand manufacturer or even a distributor, you can sell products to Amazon, which is the 1P model, meaning Amazon gives you a PO.
Yeah, they do everything for you, basically.
Yeah, they take the product in, they buy it at a wholesale price from you. They put it on Amazon, they set the pricing, they do the content, everything else. It's the way a lot of B2B companies have traditionally done business, particularly manufacturers. So it's very comfortable for a manufacturer when Amazon approaches them and says, oh, I want to buy your products from you. It's comfortable for them. They know how to do the business. It's not a change in business model. 3P is also called seller central, third-party selling. You're using Amazon, you're selling through Amazon, not to Amazon. In other words, there's no PO. If I'm a manufacturer, I'm setting up a selling account on Amazon, and I'm selling my product almost as it's a marketplace, right? So I'm listing it for sale. Amazon never buys the product, But when a sale occurs, they take the order and then say, okay, seller, either ship the product yourself to the end customer or use my fulfilled by Amazon or FBA service to fulfill it on your behalf. But Amazon never owns the product. It's owned by you until you sell it to a customer through Amazon. Then they take a commission. The part
so
that's
Amazon's really just the kind of the reseller. That it's almost like a drop shipper at that point, right?
Yeah, it's almost like drop shipping. That's right.
Essentially. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Especially, I think that could be a lot of value for distributors, because distributors, I mean, I do want to get into distributors a little bit. I know we're pretty much out of time here, but so we talked about manufacturing, and I think that's pretty fair, right? It's like a little bit of marketplace.
Yeah.
You probably want maybe some D2C. If you can do D2C, you probably want some direct to consumer if you can, if that's your business, and maybe some B2B on your website, right? Some owned channel, right? Now you own a percentage of the channel. And then some, I think, is probably just going to be like direct to the big, EDI kind of thing, like experiment. And you get these like phone and email orders, but you probably want to shift more and more of that to your own website, right? But I think distributors have a little bit of a identity crisis, because they're like, traditionally it's like, oh, we own these, we own these suppliers, we own these territories. It's like, how much longer? Like, I still talk to distributors that their value is like, oh, they just happen to own a territory. It's like, how much longer is that going to last, right? Or, oh, we have a couple trucks, so they're maybe good at selling in like 100-mile radius for like a small, niche of products, because they can ship it out fast in freight or something. It feels to me like a lot of distributors don't really have a thought out business strategy, brand proposition for like the future.
So to your point, Isaiah, yes, I would agree that distribution is under pressure, and in all kinds of ways. One of them is, obviously these new entrants in their business, Amazon Business being one of them, but you also have vertical marketplaces in some categories. You've got vertical market, like a good example is Faire, F-A-I-R-E.
Yeah.
And what they do is,
I'm familiar with them. Yeah.
So
I was integrating with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've come in and they've taken a lot of the traditional middle people out. They're bringing assortment. It's a marketplace. It's a vertical marketplace. And these exist, and they're like Amazon Business in some ways, but they exist because the distribution channels, the traditional dealers and distributors, aren't meeting the needs of the B2B buyer. They're disintermediating them. So the distributor is under pressure from vertical marketplaces, Amazon. They're also under pressure from manufacturers, because manufacturers are starting to sell direct to
I have a manufacturer that's and this is a Shopify site, just to give you perspective. Small catalog, right? But very successful, small business, very small business, but very successful, growing. And it's direct to consumer, and their B2B business on Shopify, they have a separate pro site, is already 60%, and they're going to move it to 100%. They're cut off the distributors. They're just looking at the distributors. They're like, we're just going to sell direct to the salons. We're giving better experience. We're going to sell, you know what I mean? Like they can, answer the phones and answer directly the questions.
Yes.
They can get the salons what they need faster. Because at the end of the day, it's like they're just not getting value of selling to a distributor to sell to the salons or whatever, the end, their end B2B customers, right? And they're pro. They call it the pro business, right? They're pro business, but I mean, it's just and I would say, we're working on stuff for them. I would say by next year they'll be there. They'll be done. We'll have. They just need a few more features, a little bit. We'll have done it basically.
It's a call.
Cut out the entire distributor.
That's an amazing story, Isaiah.
This is a huge company. That's the thing. And if they can do it, a bigger company with more resources should easily be able to do it.
For sure. It's a huge call to action for both manufacturers and distributors. I say this a lot in my book. I talk about understanding the ultimate buyer of your product. If you're a manufacturer, you've got to understand the value your channel really provides to that end customer. And if there's no value there other than just being a middle person, delivering it and having the product, the channel is going to die. Then
you're just like a commodity logistics provider and a reseller and a middleman that doesn't have, you don't even have good product data. Like we've talked about,
Right.
you know that usually they suck at that, right? So, and then it's like, yeah, I mean, you got to call me on the phone, and you know, what happens if you lose a couple top sales reps, you know, who have the knowledge, right? And then what?
Exactly.
You know, it's not going to be easy to recruit industry specialized sales reps, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think that they need to rethink their brand strategy, diversify, maybe create an own direct to consumer channel.
Right.
You know, they need to get more creative with like a mix of technology and process and go to market, right? And brand. They like big ass fans, right? Like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it can't just be like, oh, we're gonna like limp along or take 2 years to figure out a project. The market changes too fast. You know what I mean? Like it's just so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think they have to really wake up and understand this, and understand. Does by the way, I don't think that traditional distribution is going to die either. There's a role for
No, I don't think so either.
right, but it
But
needs
I
to be
think
high
that
value.
they are the most at risk of dying
Correct.
versus like a manufacturer. If you have a good product, you have a good product, right? Like if you have a good product, you could literally like I've seen manufacturers make a lot of money with like nothing just because they have a good product. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you can
Right.
survive off a good product, sort of, as a manufacturer. You can't do that as a distributor, right? Like you have to have a more strategic kind of
Yes.
dynamic business because you don't own the product, you know, and your manufacturer
Totally.
cut you off or go direct anytime, you know, if they wanted to.
Yeah. Totally. Totally agree. Well, this is the stuff that we debate. You know, I think I mentioned, Isaiah, I have a thought leadership series too called Master B2B.
Yeah, when can I get on one of these debates?
Yeah, we got to get you on one of the debates. They're great debates. Andy Hoare is my business partner there, and he's from Forrester Research. And we actually get practitioners together and debate these issues. In fact, that's that thing I was describing at B2B Online, what we're doing in May, is
I'm gonna try and be there, by the way. So I
oh,
hope
that's awesome. We should definitely get together.
I'm trying to scrape together all these events because it's been gone for so long. I'm like, shit, budget for all this stuff now. Like,
I know.
Speaking of plan spend, we did not have any real. We underestimated plan
That's
spend.
right. No plan spend for that. But yeah, I mean this is the stuff we debate. The Amazon versus distribution debate. I mean, this is a rich conversation around this because so much is at stake for these companies, and you know, it's an exciting time for our industry in the B2B side.
I do think the distributors could thrive, right? But I think
for sure,
kind of get their head out of the sand and say, all right, what's my real value prop? Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot of value props, but they don't bring it all together, right? It's like having trucks is a value prop, but it's not a value prop enough on its own. Having sales reps is a value prop, but it's not. You need to create this more holistic value prop and a brand. I mean, some of these guys haven't changed their logo in 20 years.
Right. Well, and to me, Isaiah, the real value in distribution is understanding the customer and having expertise in whatever it is you do. So if you're an HVAC distributor or an electrical distributor, really understanding how the end buyer uses the product together and adding value in terms of expertise. That's how you're.
I don't think that can only be you have to call to find that out, right?
Right.
I don't.
No, it shouldn't be.
I think that's not scalable, right? You're not going to be able to get enough of those people to scale that, right? Especially in some of these like legacy industries where you know the millennials and Gen Z, like they're not out there. I mean, me and my wife are out there like doing our own construction sometimes. They're not out there doing that. Like, they're not learning this stuff, you know?
Yeah. I saw a statistic the other day. I think it was 74% of millennials and you know, the next generation of B2B buyers will actively avoid physical sales, you know, contact, like salespeople, sales calls. They want to research online. They want to transact online.
They're going to call you after like the 90% of the process, right?
The research is
90%.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my 7-year-old nephew, and it's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? He wants to be a boxer or YouTuber. Like that's the thing. It's like
a YouTuber.
Yeah, I'm like, man, things are changing really fast.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to be in the NBA. I knew that was very, I realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to happen, but it's funny that YouTuber was not even a thing back when and I'm not that old, you know.
The internet didn't exist when I was a teen, so it did in some form, but not, you know. So yeah, it's amazing how things have changed over our lifetimes.
Cool. Well, yeah, we covered a lot. I want to let you go because I know we lost some time in the beginning, but yeah, this is awesome. Get me on your debate. We'll have to have you back to check back on your predictions and predictions and see if
Yeah, and by the way,
we can go through them and see, like, we'll see where you're at,
if anybody wants a copy, just email me, Brian@enceiba.com, BRIAN at Enceiba, ENCEIB as in boy A.com, and I'll be happy to send you a copy.
Definitely follow you on LinkedIn, Twitter. You're pretty easy to find. And get the book. I mean, if you're if you're an e-com manager or an executive trying to figure this out, step one, get the book, right?
Oh,
read the
thank
book.
You,
man. get some base knowledge, right? I like when you throw out some of the prices of projects, because that's gonna like hit a little dose of reality. Like, yeah, it could be as little as 100 grand to 5 million or whatever.
Right.
Because we've all seen those. I mean, we finished $1 million project for a distributor. Granted, they were $1 billion company, but
right. Awesome. Well, Isaiah, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much.